Hello, people. Hey, how are you? Just looking at some OII stuff, Organization Intersex International. The statement on the Senate report, involuntary or coerced sterilization of intersex people in Australia. They say the joint cross-party report, involuntary or coerced sterilization of intersex people in Australia, raises major concerns about medical ethics and the human rights of intersex people in Australia. Intersex people are born with variations in physical sex characteristics, such as anatomy or chromosomes. Intersex status is not about gender identity or sexual orientation. Intersex people face many of the same issues as LGBT people and those facing people with disabilities. I'm going to stop right there, because I just don't like the fact that they would state something so official that intersex status is not about gender identity or sexual orientation, because it absolutely is. But what they should have said was intersex status is not solely about gender identity or sexual orientation. Or they could have said something like, and this all got off the top of my head, intersex status it can be about gender identity or sexual orientation, but in this case it's not, Okay. Then they go on to say, the committee acknowledges that surgeries intend to erase intersex traits from individuals in society, yet the underlying preconceptions are disturbing. And here's the preconceptions. As OII commented, normalization surgery is more than physical reconstruction. The surgery is intended to deconstruct an intersex physiology and in turn construct an identity that conforms with stereotypical male and female gender categories. Now, let's just stop there, because recently Ida Valoria actually stated on the BBC World News Radio that OII don't want a third sex. Imagine. So of course, that sentence there of to construct an identity that conforms with stereotypical male and female gender categories and sex categories as well. I think gender and sex, the words and the meanings are muddled up with each other far too much. It's unbelievable. When I first came onto YouTube, let's say, and started talking with transsexuals and all those people, that we muddle up the meanings of what gender is and what sexes are. Anyway, so the next point is that they wrote, what little research exists regarding adequate or normal genitals, particularly for women, raises some disturbing questions. Well, I'd also say that there's a lot of focus from OII on women, intersex women, as Ida Valoria stated in the BBC as well, that she's an intersex woman. Now, I'm shocked, because watching the intersection documentary, I would have gotten from that we're all proud to be intersex, and that we wouldn't consider ourselves male or female, we would consider ourselves to be intersex. So it's kind of shocking and amazing that Ida Valoria actually stated that they are an intersex woman, and that they don't want the third gender business that Germany have done as the first nation to do that now. In this, let's remind ourselves, in this century, and in the last few centuries, let's say, because it did happen before. Hermaphrodite people were more regarded as gods and great things and special things, and really looked after in many of the old cultures of society. So we've got to remind ourselves that this is the society that we're living in at the moment, in the Western society at least, where this bullshit, and there's no other word for it, comes up, in such an illogical way. Like the medical system have explained sexes and gender not as they are, and therefore there's a huge lot of confusion. Of course, and the same doctors would call people who've got that confusion gender dysphoric, when in fact really the doctors themselves are the ones who've got dysphoria. I'm sorry to be so long here, but a lot of things I read in this a minute ago just disturbed me, and so this is why I'm taking apart here. The third thing that they said was normalizing appearance goes hand in hand with the stigmatization of difference. Okay. And no research has been done to evaluate the benefits of alternatives. And then there's something else here. The medical understanding of intersex is so strongly focused on binary sex and gender, enormous effort has gone into assigning and normalizing sex. None has gone into asking whether this is necessary or beneficial. Given the extremely complex and risky medical treatments that are sometimes involved, this appears extremely unfortunate. Let me read that again, because that is one of the most important points and themes and subjects we really need to debate and discuss and really get out there into the world and really bring this debate to the issue because, or bring the issue to the debate, because the transsexual debate has been out there for so long, and I don't think the majority of the world can really accept transsexualism until they understand intersex. I don't think the majority of the world can really loosen up more homophobia that they might experience for themselves until they discover what intersex means. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. The medical understanding of intersex is so strongly focused on binary sex and gender, meaning male or female, sexes and genders, whatever. Enormous effort has gone into assigning and normalizing sex. That's basically genital mutilation surgery. Okay, and it's not really too much to do with circumcision. And another huge controversial point. Circumcision basically is highly controversial, and they would consider that to be genital mutilation as well. And I can understand many people's viewpoints on that point, absolutely. And technically, yeah, it shouldn't be done really, but it's a cultural thing, and some people have got it done. So it's like getting your appendix out, really, you know. Like, should that stay in? Sort of thing. But anyway, back to the point. Enormous effort has gone into assigning and normalizing sex. None, this is it, none has gone into asking whether this is necessary or beneficial, because I don't believe that the huge pressures on people to conform, essentially to play a role all the time, and not all the time are they playing a role, but sometimes they have to play the role, of being male because they look male, or female because they look female, and that really has to stop, and it is coming to a stop, I think. It really has to stop, because I don't think it's necessary or beneficial to so-called normalize somebody, like, what is normal? How dare somebody take a baby that's just come out of some mother's vagina, let's be clear, and that mother loves the baby, regardless of what it might look like. Yes. When I was born, we could get into that, we won't get into seeing personal stuff here. When I was born, I just mentioned that, my penis was basically, considered very small at birth, and technically speaking, it's still small as an adult when it's unerect, but basically, the doctors were shocked when they saw me, absolutely told them to basically put, fuck yourself, this is my baby, I love my baby, and so this normalization business is crazy, it's insulting, it's very insulting. Anyway, Morgan Carpenter, OII Australia President, wrote our submissions to the Senate inquiry and spoke at a hearing on intersex issues on 26th of March. He says, this report represents the first opportunity after many years of campaigning to place our most serious human rights concerns before Parliament. Medical interventions on intersex infants, children and adolescents have been taking place in Australia with insufficient medical evidence and insufficient emphasis placed on human rights of the child as the future adult. Genital surgeries and sterilizations create lifelong patients, and there's significant evidence of trauma. At a first view, many of the headline conclusions and recommendations are positive, accepting our recommendations on minimizing genital surgery, concern over the lack of adequate data, insufficient psychosocial support, and concern that decision-making on cancer risks is insufficiently disentangled from wider concerns about a person's intersex status itself. We also broadly welcome the recommendations relating to the prenatal use of dexamethasone. Councillor Tony Briffa, JP, a former mayor of Hobsons Bay and OII Australia's vice president, also spoke at the hearing on intersex issues. Tony says, we welcome the recommendations around non-pathologizing and terminology, including use of the word intersex by governments and other institutions, and intersex or difference in sex development in clinical settings. We welcome the acknowledgement that genetic diversity is not intrinsically problematic. Intersex people make full active contributions to society. Brilliant wording, Tony, and obviously it showed why you were a mayor at Hobson's Bay, and I thought you were a mayor still, but obviously just but that's just a great example of using words correctly and properly and precisely to make an excellent point. And Tony did well there, thank you. Then OII, this website, goes on to say about genital surgery. We strongly welcome recommendation 3 that medical treatment needs multidisciplinary teams working within a human rights framework to favor deferral or normalizing treatment until the person can give fully informed consent, and seek to minimize surgical intervention on infants undertaken for primarily psychosocial reasons. Psychosocial reasons, really serious, nitty-gritty theme point here. We really need to look at how the world sees human beings being born and living through the world. And I mean, is transsexualism not enough of a kind of a red flashing light for the world to realize, some people just simply cannot fit into, let's say, the sex that they think, or they cannot even fit into one gender role, because it's becoming so complicated for people to understand that I personally am not a man. I'm not a woman either. I'm me. I happen to be born a medical condition. It's called the intersex. They tried to call it disorders of sex. We've ignored that and rejected that because it's not. It's an insult to a human being who's born, and we want to live in the world together. I have a great life. I've had a great life, let's put it that way. Obviously I have a shit life as well. But I've had a great life altogether. I've still got German, but it isn't. But basically, it's time for major upheaval. I'm shocked still at Hida Valoria's statement on the BBC radio. I'm actually shocked to bits with that. I mean, we need a third gender. At least we need to start with the third gender. Then hopefully in the future we can get to the point of there is no gender expectation, let's say, and sexes, that there's variety of sexes. There's variety of sexes. So because there's such a variety of sexes, there's no point in naming all of them and calling all those subsets of not normal, stereotypical normal males and females. Then we need to... I've lost my words. I've lost my point. Jesus, I've got lost in the emotion in the mid-sentence there. But we really need to change this perception of gender and to perform a male essentially with gender. Instead of labeling all the sexes and segregating them in a category, let's just all call each the human, even though man is inhuman. I know that. I don't like it myself. But I'd like us to call ourselves people, and we're all individuals. Now, people doesn't think that pink and blue there. People can be purple, as I can say. The world is purple, not pink and blue. And it's a major upheaval. I know it is for a lot of people. They thought this, and now it's this, and God, with religion as well, it's the same things. There's a lot of upheaval going on, and now's the time to change. Okay. So, no, I'm not going to go into all of this. Yes, I will. The recommendations regarding surgery accepted by the committee, the OII committee, are: 1. Medical intervention should not assume crisis in articulates, nor normalization as a goal. Yes. Number 2. Medical, and in particular surgical interventions, must have a clear ethical basis supported by evidence of long-term benefit. 3. Data must be recorded on intersex births assignments of sex at rearing and at surgical interventions. 4. Medical interventions should not be based on psychosocial adjustment of genital appearance. 5. Medical intervention should be deferred wherever possible until the patient is able to freely give full and informed consent. This is known as Gillick competence. I don't know why they put that in there, but number 6, and I just also like to say of my own self, is that, obviously I didn't have any surgery done to me at birth. The surgery I had done to me was represented testes and breast tissue reduction, basically getting growing breasts stopped, taking the tissue out, and taking testosterone. I think that's basically the surgeries that I've had to do with my condition. I've had other surgeries, but that's to do with my condition. So anyway, so I really empathize with people who were born really with ambiguous genitalia, the intersex people that are predominantly female, and that's why OII concentrates mostly on the female intersex area. And I'm glad to see there are the male intersex. I'm glad to see there are the masculine types out there that were penises, for instance, that are intersex. Most people with penises who are intersex reject intersex. I understand that they want to be seen as being an older man, and that's a different thing to how they feel, because they can't feel like a totally woman. I say that like blanket statement, yeah, I do. Most of us recognize that being an intersex person with a penis, that we really don't think like most penises. So that would be considered even feminine, basically non-male. So that's what I mean when I blanket statement at that point. Right, sorry about this now. Number 6, the point 6. Necessary medical intervention on minors should preserve the potential for different life paths and identities until the patient is old enough to consent. Number 7. The framework for medical intervention should not infantilize intersex, failing to recognize that we become adults or that we have health needs as adults. Number 8. The framework for medical intervention must not pathologize intersex through the use of stigmatizing language. Number 9. Medical protocols must mandate continual dialogue with intersex organizations. I totally agree with number 9 there, continual dialogue with intersex organizations. It would be also lovely, OII, if there would be continual dialogue with people that you might not agree with, but simply we're still there and we're actually doing our best for intersex as well. Now, you might get this press coverage and this, that, and the other, whatever, and you might have the special letters and type heads and font heads of OII, USA and Australia. But essentially speaking, you're not, I don't take away anything that you've done, but you're not more good than the rest of us as well. So I'd really like to see continual dialogue between intersex organizations. That's the organizations I'm involved with. And you can call them organizations without having a chairman and secretary, by the way. Yeah? Because we're organized. And I have to be semantic about this. We are actually organized. We're really trying to work together. But unfortunately, this is where my criticism for why I come in again. It's like, you're not very all-encompassing. Really, are you in your own kind, your own intersex kind? You're not enough. Sorry. God, you don't even watch these videos. One of you watches them, but I think a shuffle needs to happen as well, an upheaval in the OII community, because it is a community of 20 people maximum. In fact, there's 1 in 2,000 people in the world born intersex, and their voices are not being counted all the time, especially not with the disaster of pedophilia and saying that there shouldn't be a third gender. That's absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to just skip down through this. I've skipped a few things already. I want to read this out. The Guidelines Advisory Committee Community Participation. Morgan Carpenter, President of OII Australia says, "We welcome legal scrutiny that is guided by human rights-based frameworks and guidelines protecting both the rights of the child and the future adult. It is essential that future court involvement be shaped by human rights considerations, informed by national guidelines with the participation of the child, family and support organizations. Guidelines must ensure the best protection of the rights of the child and future adult. Guidelines and national standards need to be human rights-based, not simply medical in character. They must be shaped with involvement from the community. However, the impact on our community organizations is immense. The committee was impressed with the professionalism of intersex community organizations, but we are still not equal partners. I'm glad you say it. In the policy development process, the review and evaluation of guidance, or even in providing basic support to intersex people and our families. Exactly, that's why I've mentioned we should have a 24-hour hotline going on through Skype, and operators available all the time. You know, not so out there. It's happening for all sorts of other organizations. You know, people can phone up and get help, and we need that for intersex. And I've mentioned this years ago as well. So I don't care how much I mention it, as long as it gets done. I don't care my name not getting mentioned for this excellent idea. You know, that's fine too. As long as it's happening, that's all I care about. I'm a great idea maker. I've always been that in my life. You know. So I'm used to people not taking my idea basically and not giving me credit. I don't need the credit for the things I come up with. I actually just want the things I come up with to happen. Yeah. So they go on to say, "We remain unfunded. Everything that we do is a measure of our commitment and concern, but still all the work that we do is in our spare time. This urgently needs to change." So they're actually asking for money there. I'm not even going to continue, because OII do disappoint me altogether. They want money, and they're not getting funding. They're basically complaining there. That shouldn't be there even on this statement on the Central Report of Voluntary Coerced Sterilization of Intersex People in Australia. Them getting paid for doing their voluntary work in their spare time. That it sounds like OII are doing it in their spare time, whereas I actually dedicate most of my days to intersex issues. So I don't do intersex things in my spare time. I do intersex things every day, all the time, like a lot, you know. And I would love if I've often said to people of OII, "Why am I not your spokesperson, or why am I not being secretary?" I even offered to do free work, absolutely free work for them, and they basically said no. You know, I mean, it's crazy. I'm a big fast typer. I'm a good reader. Fair enough, I made a few boo-boos now, but you know, whatever. You know, and they're not using me now. Why aren't they using me? Because I think they've got their own agenda, and it seems to be very clear what their agenda is. They don't want the third gender. That's what their agenda. That's what they've said in the press. I cannot believe it. Therefore, I'm not OII, but I am intersex, and I'm going to take over OII. You know, snotty, cocky at the end of the video. I am going to take over OII. And if that's really becoming too much of a stress and a pain in the arse to do it, then simply I'm going to invent my own organization. It's a real organization for intersex people, the one that really cares, the one with the 24-hour hotline going on. Now, I'm not going to be on it 24 hours, but I'm going to have excellent people who have hearts, ears, care. You know, they care for each and every intersex person. I've spoken to so many, thousands, and it's got to be thousands at this point, of intersex people, trans people, people with gender issues, you know, and all for free, all in my spare time, if you want to go on about that, you know, please, people, I've got the energy, I'm ready, I've always been ready, and I'm still doing what I'm doing, you know, so it's not that I'm ready, I'm sitting on my arse waiting to get the go-ahead signals. You must be joking, I do my own thing, you know, and I will lead, because I'm a born leader, and I've just been sitting in the back seat a lot through life, basically, thinking, I'll be polite and a gentle person. I was going to say gentleman. Got to go, I think this ends at 25 minutes, I'm not really sure. Peace, people. Ciao.